how do you deal with childhood trauma where the patient doesn't know or remember what that trauma was? They were 2 years old or 3 years old or 4 years old.
Yeah, I find very few clients don't know. Most of them do know, and they may bury it, they may forget it, but most people know because when you go through that much trauma, you wouldn't forget it. Yes, if you said to me, look, somebody was abused as a tiny baby and never abused again, and they've forgotten that, that may make sense. Well, we know that the body stores trauma. We know that when you take children out of war zones, even as tiny babies, that trauma is going to come out somewhere. And I love this expression, one of my favorite ones by a very eminent psychiatrist called William Maudsley, who said the feeling that cannot find its expression in tears will cause other organs to weep. So occasionally I do take people back to scenes that they don't remember, but that's so uncommon. Usually they know, they go, yeah, I remember that. People go back to all kinds of stuff, but they do remember. They sometimes just choose to forget because it's so painful. But if somebody really came in and said, hey, you know, I'm obese, I'm morbidly obese, so I'm always rejecting love, I won't let anyone in, and I took them back to scenes of trauma, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, and they truly didn't remember, then I would explain to them, so, you know, it's okay that you don't remember, this is why. And then I would carry on doing what I do, which is to say, this happened to a baby. It was completely wrong, absolutely wrong, but that baby isn't you. You know, one of my clients told me his story, and he was incredibly obese and had tried everything to lose weight. He'd had his stomach stapled, he'd had his jaw wired, he did everything. And he went back to being a tiny premature baby, and the mother was feeding him, and every time he threw up the feed, she would get hysterical and cry, and the husband would come in and get really stressed because they couldn't get this baby to gain weight, and he'd have to go back into hospital, back on an incubator, then he'd come back and eventually gained a bit of weight, and they were so happy. And they started to call him their jumbo jet because he went from being tiny to getting bigger and bigger, and they were just so happy when he ate and gained weight, and the doctors were happy. Now he's formed a belief. If I'm skinny, my mum is terrified, and if I am big, everyone's happy. And I said, well, that's fine when you're a 2-pound baby, but you now weigh nearly 400 pounds. That's not you. You're not a little premature baby with wires being weighed all the time. You're a fully grown man, and you will not die now from not eating, but you will die if you continue to eat the way you eat. So first they have to look and think, oh yeah, that makes absolute sense, but that's not me. So the amount of people who come in and say, my dad left when I was 1, my dad never saw me, my mum preferred my brother, nobody loved me, therefore I can't be lovable. If my own mum didn't love me, who could love me? If my own dad didn't even see me, how can I be lovable? And I have to then say, look, but your parents were 17 or 18 or crazy or mentally ill or victims of their own life. What happened then has nothing to do with your ability to be lovable. And we can look at people like Marilyn Monroe as the most obvious example, Michael Jackson, so many people who didn't feel loved as children and as adults cannot accept they're worthy of love. But it's the ability to see it, recognize that isn't them and change it. So what our TT does is you don't do it for your client, you do it with them. They go back to the scenes. They do what I call right hand, work out how one scene led to the other. And they find it immensely powerful and incredibly transformational too. The best example recently is a girl I saw who was hypersensitive to light and would burn when she went outside very badly. And her story she was telling me was that she was a child of a single parent, no dad. Mother had to go to work, she had no money, and she got bullied. When she said to her mum, can I stay at home? She said, no, because I can't stay at home. You have to go to school. So back she went, got bullied even more, and asked her what she thought. And she said, I just wanted to stay at home all the time. It was safe there. And then she got this skin burning, so she couldn't leave the house. And what people don't recognize is that when you say to your mind, I want to stay at home, I don't want anyone to reject me, I don't want my mum's woman to look at me in that weird sexual way, I don't want to be bullied, your mind can only go ahead and find any way to stop that. It doesn't stop thinking, shall I find a good way, a logical way, a healthy way? Any way will work, because it's like the genie in the bottle. Your wish is my command. And that's why hypnosis is great, because it goes back to when did you unconsciously want this to happen? Even with tiny kids, it's fascinating what comes up. I mean, it's mind-blowing a lot of the time.
So this is something that can be utilized with children?
Oh yeah, I was working with a little kid recently who had chronic headaches, very unusual for a child, chronic migraines. And when I asked him, if the migraine was your friend, I know that's a silly question, but imagine the migraine wanted to help you. And he said, I get them every time mommy and daddy fight, and then I get a headache, and then they turn off all the lights, and I lie in a dark room and mommy strokes my head. Now that child, without knowing it, had thought, though all children think at 5, I've got to find a way to stop mommy and daddy fighting. I need to find a way to stop the shouting. But a child has no logic before the age of 5, only feelings. They can't possibly go up and say, hey, this is unreasonable, and why don't you two work it out? And by the way, when you shout like that, it's abusive for me. It's damaging me. The child can only suddenly get chronic headaches, which is saying, by the way, something is really wrong here. And the parents didn't get that, but they got to stop fighting. Many children who don't get mother's attention and want it will get asthma, eczema, dermatitis, allergies, stomach aches. It's incredibly common. And the children are actually really good at understanding, oh, I got this because I needed mummy to love me. And she does love you. But you see, when you're 4 and mum is always at work, a child can't realize that mum is at work because she wants to, to have a nice home. And I thought they just think mum's at work because she prefers work to me. And when parents can say, I prefer you to anything, I'd much rather be at home with you, but I do have to go to work, but there's nowhere I'd rather be than with you. It kind of makes sense. The biggest problem I see is that when a child doesn't think their parents love them, they never stop loving the parent, they stop loving themselves. They believe I'm unlovable, I'm unworthy, I'm not lovable enough. And if you look at someone like Amy Winehouse or Whitney Houston or Philip Seymour Hoffman, you can see it so clearly, the destructive behaviors that originate in children who feel, well, I'm just not loved. If you don't meet children's needs at a basic level, they need to feel safe and loved and secure and significant, you'll go through life believing no one's ever going to meet these needs, including themselves. And that's not true, because as we get older, we can do a great job of meeting our needs and helping people meet our needs too. But when you start believing they won't be met, you'll carry that with you forever.
We hope you enjoyed this short excerpt from the Health and Healing Club. This entire video, including an in-depth discussion and thoughtful and inspiring questions and answers, is available inside the Health and Healing Club, along with hundreds of hours of premium and exclusive life-changing content, practices, and holistic, natural, and integrative solutions for health and healing. You can start your free trial today at healthandhealingclub.com.